All right, so today we are going to talk about the waste and recycling and management systems throughout the United States. Just to put some things into perspective, an average U.S. person throws away about 4.6 pounds of waste every day. And each pound of that solid waste contributes to 40 to 70 pounds of industrial debris that were generated in the production of that waste. Now, what I wanted to talk about with you guys was Barry Commoner's 4 laws of ecology. He states that the first one is everything is connected to something else. Like a good example of that is like the paper that we use for our notes. That all comes from a tree. That tree was cut down. A lot of the paper that we use either doesn't get recycled, doesn't get used, but it's all reusable product. His second law is everything must go somewhere. So an example of that is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. That's about twice the size of Texas, and it's floating in the center of the Pacific Ocean, right along the coast. It goes up and down. It goes all over the place. On the coast of Washington State, a dead whale was found with about 50 gallons of plastic and textiles in its stomach. And on top of that, plastic causes the death of about 1 million seabirds every year and about 100,000 marine mammals, which is a lot of animals that we can save by recycling. His third law is that nature knows best. This means pretty much that waste for one is food for another. The biosphere is constantly moving. The matter is constantly cycling. So an animal passes away and it's left there in the woods, and another animal either uses it for food, its body decays, feeds the trees and the plants. So nature knows best. It knows it takes one life and feeds another.
Natural recycling.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a natural way to recycle. The fourth law is there's no such thing as a free lunch. That could pretty much mean that there's nature is being exploited, and it always involves the conversion of resources from useful to useless forms. There's always a balance, there's always a cost, and there's always debts that get paid. So, for example, the more greenhouse gases that get released into the ozone layer, the more hurricanes that we'll see coming towards us, which in Florida we know is a big thing. There is the waste management hierarchy, which is here behind us on the board. There's the first step, these all go in like descending order. The first step is prevention and reduction. The second one would be reusing. Third, recycling. Those like the reduce, reuse, recycle are the 3 big things that you hear, like the little green arrows that go around when it comes to promoting recycling. Prevention, what we could do would be to use less paper towels or, and I messed up because I lost my train of thought.
No, just continue.
We can cut it out, it's okay.
Just reuse.
So reusing, we could get reusable water bottles instead of using plastic bottles all the time. We could buy, they make like Yetis, they make whatever you want to use for that. Recycling, reuse paper, take tin cans, plastic cans, wash them out instead of throwing them in the garbage, put them in a recycling bin. The city offers those services. The next option after the next hierarchy is treatment. So that comes in forms of either physical, chemical, plants, or not plants, but like treatment facilities. So there's different ways that the waste gets treated, either how it's destroyed, where it's sent, how it's reused if it's a recyclable product. For disposal options, there's incineration, where all the waste is burnt up. There's landfills, which is a physical plant where they are placed until it reaches a certain level in excavated ground, and then it's covered up. There's chemical options for disposal. So then going into landfills, as I said, it's a large excavated hole with layers of clay, garbage that are piled up. There's a plastic liner along the bottom. And landfills are then, once they're filled all the way, they're then capped and covered with more soil and clay, and they're usually repurposed. One fun fact is that both LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark airports were all built on former landfills.
All right. Talk a little about recycling. First of all, recycling, it's a disposal method that extracts materials from the waste stream and processes them so that they can be reused in some way. And it's like a 3-step process. The materials are collected for recycling and transported to a central material recovery facility. It's also called an MRF, to be sorted. The second step is that the materials are dumped onto a conveyor belt and they're sorted out, just preliminary manual sorting, and it's done via air blasters, electromagnets, pretty much anything that's going to separate different types of material. And then the third step is after everything's been sorted, the material is broken down for repurposing into new products. There's a couple different kinds of material that are sought after for recycling. Glass, paper, cardboard, and plastic are the main materials. And glass is probably the most sought after because it can be repurposed the most easily, remelted into products that have the same characteristics as the original material. Paper and cardboard, about 55% of it is recycled, and it does have a little bit of a drawback because the fibers in paper, they break down and shorten each time they're processed, so it's not an indefinite process. And then plastic containers and packaging make up most of the plastic that's able to be recycled, and they also can't be recycled indefinitely just because once plastic has been recycled, the recycled product itself is not able to be then recycled. A couple benefits from recycling is using recycled materials in manufacturing. It almost always uses less energy and water. It also releases less pollution and emits less carbon dioxide than manufacturing with the virgin materials.
All right, so I'm going to talk to you guys about industrial waste. The definition of industrial waste is the leftover and discarded material produced as byproduct of manufacturing, extraction, power generation, and other large-scale commercial enterprises. So if you can imagine how much we use those things, we do produce quite a lot of industrial waste. Actually, in the U.S., we produce 90% of our waste is industrial waste. Researchers are trying to make us rethink about how to recycle to produce less waste. They want us to add another R to the recycling hierarchy, and they want to add rethink to the beginning of the hierarchy, so we can start thinking about how we can stop producing so much waste instead of how we can change what we do with that waste. They're also trying to promote a zero waste approach, which looks at material as like reusable in every way, and it's a cradle to cradle model where no toxic waste is produced and everything can be reused.
Did you know that the urban waste produced from cities around the world is enough to fill a line of garbage trucks stretching more than 3,100 miles? That's a distance from Florida to Washington every day. And things are only expected to get worse. Thankfully, some cities such as San Francisco are paving the way and trying to change the way we think about trash.
San Francisco plans to become zero waste by 2020, which is a pretty ambitious but awesome goal. And this is the main nerve center for all of the city's recyclables. This is where everything ends up to be sorted and processed. What is zero waste?
It's an idea, and it means sending next to nothing to landfills or incinerators.
In 2009, the city passed a law requiring residents and businesses to sort their waste into recyclables, compostables, and landfill trash. Recology is the private company that handles it all.
When I started at Recology 23 years ago, the recycling rate was around 38%. Today, we've more than doubled that.
So far, San Francisco has diverted 80% of its waste away from landfills, and its success has been getting global attention.
Government representatives from all over the world visit this facility to learn about how they might be able to replicate what's being done here. What is the current method of waste management or recycling in your town?
What we have a lot of in Denmark is actually incineration, where you burn the waste.
Do you think that you might implement some of what you've learned here?
One thing that we have heard a lot is the value of composting. We don't do that a lot. So maybe we will go home and do more composting.
San Francisco now collects 650 tons of food scraps, yard trimmings, and other organic waste every day. That material is brought here to be turned into compost.
This is one of the most modern composting facilities in North America.
Okay, so you can see a bunch of stuff here that people have thrown away. Mostly like wood here, a shoe, this flip-flop.
Yeah, there's a...
What's up with shoes?
Well, there's 7 billion people on the planet, so there's a lot of shoes. We're in a culture here in California where people are moving very quickly, and so people make mistakes. So we get the things that are not supposed to be here, we get them removed right away, right at the beginning.
After the waste is ground up and screened for plastic and other bits of trash, the organic matter left over gets watered and aerated. A piping system then filters out dangerous greenhouse gases produced by microbes. In about 60 days, the compost is complete and sold to local organic farmers and vineyards.
How does composting help the environment?
Composting keeps materials out of landfills. It returns nutrients to farms. It reduces the production of very potent greenhouse gases. It attracts and retains water, like rainwater.
I mean, it smells like hell, but it's actually very beautiful what you're describing here. You know, people's food scraps, which might otherwise be waste, comes here to essentially feed these farms and produce new crops.
Well, from this facility, more than 300 vineyards have received the compost and applied it to their vineyards. Farmers are using the compost to grow cover crops that pull carbon out of the atmosphere and return carbon back to the soil. This is one of the best things we can do in an effort to slow down climate change. People have really heard a lot about environmental problems. They want to hear now a lot more about environmental solutions.
How much recycling and composting is there in your town?
Colloquium. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
It's been recording.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Do you think that FGCU handles waste and recycling properly?
Yes. With their different cans and stuff, I feel like they kind of separate it pretty well.
Do that pretty well. How much waste do you think the average person throws away every day?
Probably like 5 pounds of waste.
Wow. You were very close. You were very close. It is 4.6 pounds a day is the average for an American. What do you / can you do to prevent waste in your own life?
Just recycle, like eat leftovers, just reuse your stuff that you might have thrown out.
Nice. Cool. Got it. Do you think that FGCU handles waste and recycling properly?
Yeah, they definitely do. I lived in North Lake last year, and they have a really great recycling program here. So.
Cool, cool. That's awesome. How much waste do you think the average person throws away?
Like in pounds?
Yeah.
A lot.
A lot, right? So it's actually 4.6 pounds a day is the average American. Crazy, right? And what do you do / can you do to prevent waste in your own life?
Just recycle as much as possible. Try to use things that don't produce more waste, like more glass containers instead of plastic, things like that.
Awesome. Cool. That's all we got.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Ready? So do you think that FGCU handles waste and recycling properly?
For the most part.
Yeah, okay, cool. How much waste do you think the average person throws away every day?
3 pounds.
You were close. You were close. It's 4.6 pounds a day, which is kind of crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And what do you think that you can do in your life to prevent waste?
Well, if A lot of times I see trash on the ground, so I try to pick that up and throw it away.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Now that we're all expert on waste and recycling, here are a few questions for the class to answer. 1, describe the waste management hierarchy. 2, what are the drawbacks to recycling plastics? And 3, what is zero waste? Thanks, guys.